Hello, everyone, guys. How are you? We're getting closer to the big day of Christmas, and we're also getting to the big day of World War III when somebody finally comes out there and admits that we're in it, admits that we've been in it for a while. So in this video, I'm going to talk and I'm going to focus a little bit about the United States. The United States invasion of Iran that I believe is going to come in roundabout, well, the earliest it can happen is March 2026. Again, I'm not changing my tune. I've been saying this the longest time. What we're seeing right now in the world is it's a divergence between the United States and the rest of NATO. Now, I've done so many videos about this, just in a nutshell, the United States, they're the only ones with the United States are the only ones with the logistics to have a war in the Middle East because that will have to come from the sea. The Europeans are going to have to fight the Russians in Eastern Europe, whether that's Ukraine still, whether that's Poland, wherever that may be. And right now, all paths, I believe, are leading to a global conflict on an industrial scale. So what we're going to focus on a little bit today, guys, is the naval aspect of this, because I've not really revisited this for a while. Most of my videos have been focusing on Ukraine. They've been focusing on the, on the land war in Ukraine. But right now, we've got a lot of things happening in the water. So this is an article that came out yesterday. I'll put this link in the description. Underwater footage raises suspicion of undersea cable sabotage as European authorities board Chinese ship for investigation. The undersea cable cutting saga is moving forward, and new underwater video footage is starting to emerge that makes things clearer. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, all under the water, there are all sorts of underwater cables and communications cables, military, civilian, lots of networks. And we can only speculate what these things are. I would say that the military have a lot of listening devices. I would say those listening devices are connected via certain undersea cables. And I would say that a lot of these things we're being told are civilian cables that have been severed. I would say these are military cables that have been severed that then restricts the access to those listening devices that are under the water. Remember when the Titan submersible, remember the Titan submersible that kind of like imploded really quickly? Can you remember the US Navy, they just went straight to it and said, yeah, we know exactly what's happened. This has happened at this time, at this depth, and they went down and they recovered it straight away. Can you remember that? Was that not a little bit suspicious how the US Navy knew exactly what had happened and they just went to it so quickly? So, you've got to understand and you've got to get from that, under the water, it's like anywhere else. It's highly militarized. Now, I've said for the longest time that the next naval conflict, it's not going to be fought by conventional ships. You're going to have a situation where you've got asymmetric naval warfare. And again, nobody else is talking about asymmetric warfare. I'm the only person who's talking about it. I've been talking about it for such a long time because the attacks from the sea, they're not going to come from conventional shipping vessels. They're not going to come from conventional naval attacks. They're going to be on these things here, guys, these containerized missile systems. So if you just look here, guys, I'll put this link in the description, I think, yeah. So this is a Club K. This is a containerized missile system. So in there, I think that's supposed to be like an S-300, or I don't know what it is. But you can kind of see the concept here. You can put these things, these containers on the back of a normal cargo ship, then that cargo ship can sail wherever it wants, and it's not under the same scrutiny as a military ship would be. So just try and conceptualize, guys, okay? One of these cargo ships, how close can you get one of these cargo ships? I don't know, up to New Jersey. And then think, right, okay, if this was a Russian or a Chinese naval vessel with missiles and stuff all protruding out of the outside of it or whatever, how close do you think that would be able to get to the coastline of the United States or the United Kingdom or anywhere in Europe, I guess? So of course, the next naval conflict, that's how it's going to be fought. Because then if your aircraft carrier gets taken out by one of these things that's on the back of of a civilian cargo ship, how does the Navy react then? Do they take down that that cargo ship? Well, that's going to be an absolute catastrophe, especially when they hit the wrong one, or when the people on that vessel, all the evidence has gone to the bottom of the ocean, and then it's an unprovoked attack then on a civilian shipping vessel, sorry. And of course, these containers, they can be put on the back of trucks, and look how easy they can be transported. So that's where I feel the future of the future of naval warfare is going. It's going to be, and people say, oh, the Russians are not investing any money in their navy. Look how ridiculous the Russian navy is. Look at their old aircraft carriers. Yeah, because all that sort of stuff's already obsolete, because we have now got civilian systems, better systems potentially, because they can get closer to enemy shores, and that's where the next attacks are going to come from. So probably in Russia, they're probably laughing at the US military and NATO spending all this money on conventional naval forces, when they're going to be taken out relatively quickly, and that's going to come from, like we've just seen, from civilian cargo ships, and it's going to be very, very, very hard to mitigate against this. We found this in Afghanistan when we were fighting an insurgency. These insurgents were dressed in civilian clothes. They were combatant. They would run around a corner. They would throw their systems on the floor, and then who are they? Like, realistically, unless you can positively identify that person, they're a civilian again. So that's kind of the situation that's going to happen right in these next naval conflicts. There's going to be mass incidences of ships being sank. These are going to get sank by civilian cargo ships. It's then going to be really difficult to identify where that actually came from. If there's 5-10 cargo ships queuing up to get into a port or a dock, how's the Navy going to identify which actual ship that came from? And is the Navy going to sink that? No, of course not, because all the evidence will be lost. What if it's the wrong ship? It's going to be very difficult, this next phase of asymmetric warfare. It's going to be really difficult to, it's going to be really difficult because of the emergence of these new systems. Now, the United States have also launched an attack recently against Houthi targets in Yemen. I'll just share this one with you again. And what we're seeing now is the United States in this diversions, where the United States are going to focus, and they're going to have their war with Iran. United States launches airstrikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. Military says the strikes aim to disrupt and degrade Houthi operations, such as attacks against US Navy warships and merchant vessels. So you can see that this, that the United States are paving the way for naval dominance. Why? Because this invasion of Iran is going to come from the sea. It has to come from the sea. So the United States have to have that, that 100%, like in Iraq, Afghanistan, they had 100%, aerial air superiority. When this war happens in Iran, they're going to need total naval supremacy before they go in there. And that's because they're going to be conducting their reconnaissance using drones that are launched from the sea. Check my other videos out, guys, about the New Jersey drones. The US military said it conducted precision airstrikes on Saturday against a missile storage facility and a command and control facility operated by, remember how they keep putting this in here, guys, okay? Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen's capital, Sana'a. We're going to call it Sana'a, guys. I may be butchering that. In a statement, the U.S. Military Central Command, which is, I think that's in Florida, said the strikes aim to disrupt and degrade Houthi operations, such as attacks against U.S. Navy warships and merchant vessels operating in the Red Sea. So, this is what we're having, guys. We're seeing these breadcrumbs now. We're seeing these things. We're seeing these stars align. We're seeing the fact that the United States is going to focus all their efforts, in that area in the Middle East. and the United Kingdom are going to lead NATO, or what's left of NATO, in the war in Ukraine against the Russians. However you want to frame that, that's what's going to happen. And it all comes down to logistics, logistics. A lot of these logistics that are going to have to go into Iran are going to be brought on civilian shipping, civilian cargo ships, civilian vessels, because think about the amount of food, water, munitions that are needed to support 600,000 troops. Now, I'm using 600,000 troops because that's what the number of troops that were involved in the invasion of Iraq was in 2003. Obviously, Iran's bigger, but, we have to go with a number, so we're going with 600,000. So that's why these things are happening, guys, all right? Everything that's happening right now is leading to a global conflict on an industrial scale. And I keep saying this. I keep giving people the data points. I keep giving people the reasons why. And then one of these little, there's an incident that happens, in the other side of the world. And then I trace that back and I tell you why it's happening, because all roads right now are leading to that global conflict. From the drones in New Jersey to these Houthi strikes, the rhetoric about Iran, the Vladimir Putin and his new missile system, all these things are connected, and that's where it's leading, guys. Okay, global conflict on an industrial scale. Anyway, guys, I thought I'd keep this video short and to the point. Give you guys the information you need. Anyway, guys, I'm going to Mac to Grid. I'll get you guys another video later.